Okay, so I'm going to do some detail work. I'm going to define some edges. And this is the process of how I add detail. Okay, so you can see down in this little area, I'm going to add a little bit of dark right where they crisscross. Kind of indicating that they're casting a shadow. Now I'm just putting down the foundation piece here. And I'm going to be doing a lot more stuff down here. And this is just the process. And I'll come back in here and blend things out. But for this purpose, just to give you an idea, this is how things work. And these may require several layers. That's my puppy Senna next to me. So my hand starts to shake a little bit. She's investigating what Dad's doing here. She doesn't seem to understand that this is what I do, and she's saying, well, you know, petting me is one other part. So right now I'm just kind of overlapping some of the stuff behind and blending in. And you can see it just slowly takes a life of its own. Now, this is what I call kind of painting on autopilot. It's like I'm in a zone right now, not thinking about anything, just kind of plugging along. It just putting down stuff that makes sense to me. You know, I'm going to add a little bit more of the detail. And define some edges. I'm going to zoom in a little bit so you can see what I'm talking about. Okay, so now I just want to define some edges. So I'm still using a sap green, but now these look a little harsh. They'll lighten up as time goes on, and I will still blend them out because I don't want that severe hard edge. And this is just the way it goes, overlapping, defining edges. If they're too strong after the initial layer, I will blend things out. Now here's kind of one where I can come into the seaweed itself and just add some detail. Now they're not too defined, is because, as I said in a previous video, they're really pretty much destroyed. They got a lot of holes and texture pieces, and it's just, I mean, I could draw them like they're all perfect, but that's not my intention. want to make them somewhat realistic. Now, I'm not, as I said in a previous video, or part 1, I'm not in scientific mode. I am painting now instead of a scientific. There is some scientific illustrations that would be similar to this, so I could still call it a scientific illustration. But what I'm doing now is it's flipping from scientific to my comfortable style, where I feel like I'm still being a scientific illustrator, but I have more control on what I want to paint. And that now is more important to me. So if it isn't like somebody would look at it and say, oh, you're missing this little thing on here and this is not blended right, which I don't really care one way or the other. I'm just painting for myself and what makes me feel good. And this is more important than having every little stroke or everything kind of pleasing a couple of people. This only satisfies me, which I think that's the way painting should be. So, but I still can't get rid of the scientific background that I had, so it's kind of a combination of scientific with realism and surrealism. Obviously this can't really take place in nature. I mean, it's just a snapshot of my mind as I'm just slowly building things up. And I'm having actually more fun now. Not that I didn't enjoy scientific illustration and taking something to the nth degree. This is much more satisfying. And I haven't done the other side. When I did my scan, you could tell it is not finished and in the process. But from this side, you can almost understand what's going to happen on the other side. Like I said, the Garibaldis are not complete, but this is the tedious work which I live for. This stuff. This is what truly makes me happy, is to do the detail and just add a little bit more to something that just doesn't seem right. And that is what I'm doing here. Now I'm going to be doing some grasses and maybe a holdfast or two down the bottom. I'm not sure how that's going to work out, but that's the plan. I may change my mind because there is nothing written in stone. I could change things because I want to. But now it's just a series of blending. I'll come in here and lighten some edges to make it work for me. Like right in here, you can see that it's kind of blotchy, and I don't know how close I am right now. I'm probably pretty close. Yeah, but it's just a blending process, and this is how I do all my paintings, no matter what the subject matter is. It's just put down strokes, lighten them. So you can see I'm lightening this, so this is in front of this. Need more of a core light in here. Just a slight core light. Leaving that little shadow right there. Maybe it comes towards you and then folds back in to indicate the direction. And I'm just looking for things that make sense to me. That, like right there, that's too dark. Blend that out. And you can see what I'm talking about. You know, it's like this is totally in the process. I did a detail close-up of the seaweed with detail. So I still want to leave things that it looks like it's translucent. And that's just the blending process. So this is way too dark of an edge, so I'm going to blend that out. This needs a lot more work in here. This is going to be a double, so I'll add another. So this is way too dark in here. This line needs to be blended out. I'll come back in here with more layers to indicate the texture of the leaves. You can see it's kind of happening right now. You can see how too bold it was before I even got close to it. And by going over and adding more layers and blending out, it adds to the, you can see some see-through patterns right in here. I'll come in to find the edges later. You can see there's a slight line right in there. You know, it's like you could live in just this one little section here. And that's where I could spend hours on just 2 inches, going back and forth, looking for little teeny lines that it's like, wow, that worked out great. That didn't work out. I'll have to redo that. But as I said before, watercolors is the most difficult medium there is in existence. And that's why I'm doing these kind of instructional videos, kind of so that people can understand the process. Now, again, I have to indicate that I'm making it look easy. It's not. This is because I've been doing this, well, painting for 60 years, but only doing watercolors for plus 20. And if you saw my studio tour video, you will see that I was not that very good 20 years ago. But anybody who does things for a while makes it look easy. And I'm sure some people will look at this and say, well, that looks really easy. And you try it and it's not that easy. But don't get discouraged. Anything that you want detail, it takes time. And slowly, I mean, you just don't start swimming in rough waters. You got to do it in calm waters first, so you understand your limitations. But when you get to a point, you'll start growing, and always keep a record of where you're at, because that is part of it. I have hundreds of sketchbooks from all the years, and I occasionally look through them and I see, wow, that's where I was at back in the 70s, and that's where I was back in the 80s, and this is where I am now. It's just this growth pattern that comes with time. Now, some of you, because I'm showing these techniques, which nobody could share those techniques long ago, I'm giving you like a heads up and kind of like a an advanced course of watercolors. Now, I taught my students how to do this, but most of them were all different ages, so I had to blend things and arrange things so they could understand what I was trying to show them. But it was always a process, and I made a portfolio that they had to add to their stuff from the beginning of the semester, and they could actually see where they were at before they took my class and what they were at the end of the semester. Now, some of them had me before, so looking at their work when they had me in 7th grade, and when they had me in 9th grade, there was like light years because of my instruction, showing them step by step and taking them through the journey. Now, I don't know how far those students are at this point in time. I know some of them have continued with the art field. Some of them, you know, it was just a class, which is normal school stuff. But I've had students kind of come and said they had a lot of fun in my class. So I always taught history, science, biology, math, and everything else in between, which was my kind of background anyway. So art and everything else is connected to each other in some degree. Origami is math to the nth degree. If you ever look at some really intense origami pictures or instructions, you'll understand that. So art and math are connected. Okay, so this is latest piece. This is actually the second part. I'm going to do a overall scan first. Some people will see the difference if you saw the first one. And then I'm going to zoom in to a closer. Now these are getting closer to finish. There's some with some added detail in case you have not seen that. Came into the Garibaldi. That still needs a lot more work, but here's another one in progress. As you can see, I'm defining the edge. And here's a juvenile. They have kind of a neon blue. It's going to be hard because I'm going to have to go over it, maybe add some white from the backside to enhance what's happening. There's kind of a foundation piece. And I'm going to be doing a instruction. And just another update. I'm going to do a slow scan down. This is the continuation of part 2. Still haven't started that large Garibaldi. I'm going to also put some sheep head, or one maybe, or two. It doesn't matter. I don't feel how I do it. Now I'm going to come down here, and this is going to be kind of the ground where they'll have mostly white patches and some small coral with maybe a few urchins. Now I'm going to do a close-up scan. Some of this yellow I'll come in and pull it out so it looks like possibly sunlight coming through and hitting the seaweed, maybe the fish. Never sure. I'm not sure right now, so it may change. There's another unfinished Garibaldi. That one right here still needs a lot more punch in it. Doing some shadows, seaweed in the distance. Anyway. Hello, this is a little bit more of an update, kind of showing progression. Looks a little bit different from the last part. I'm going to go in here a little closer. Did a lot more work in here. Background on the tubes. This is a lot of work in here, going in and out. It still needs, you know, a lot more work, but everything up here is still about maybe 80%. Went into this a little bit more. This definitely needs this foundation. Went into the Garibaldi a little bit more. Came in here. All these need a lot more work. Came into here. I'm going to do a demonstration down in here. But as far as everything's going, it looks okay. I'm going to do kind of some groundwork here, maybe throw in some sea urchins and some coral. Not sure what it's going to look like, but just that's the idea. So I'm going to do a demonstration right in here. Okay, so I'm going to go into here in the bottom. So I'm going to throw some layers. There's a nice little shadow in here. Now I am moving rather quickly, but for demonstration purposes, it's kind of needed. Now I'm not doing, as I mentioned several times, scientific illustrations. They're somewhat scientific because of my background, and they are detailed, and they do have some, I guess you could say, scientific looking properties, but it's not what I would normally do. But I like very different things. I love surrealistic painters like Dali. I love the Impressionists like Monet, Manet, Cézanne. Everybody has their little niche, and mine just happens to include somewhat scientific work, but not developed to the point of I would almost call insanity, where everything has to be super precise. And I could do that, and I do that occasionally on these paintings. But right now, I'm just in a teaching mode, because that's what I've been doing for, the last 16, 17 years. So, and just wanted to teach my techniques of watercolor, because they are so difficult. Now, I don't want to get so detailed that it discourages people, but giving you kind of an option of doing something that's a little bit more detailed, or if you wanted to, doesn't mean you have to. Just, as I said many times, there's a lot of different styles. There's no right or wrong. Some people like to paint and finish a painting in 15 minutes complete. And if that makes you happy, that's, makes you happy. Now, I'm going to pull out kind of the color here to get this so that it looks tubular. And this is just going over and over. And I might just, after I do this, stop and make a video of where I'm at so far, because there's going to be a lot of detail on the bottom and up front and everywhere else. But here, this is another little, see, that's what I'm talking about. Sometimes you just hit these little spots, like this little area right in here, where there's a little bit of detail in here. There's some overlapping of items, and it's just so pleasing to me. It's kind of like, that gives me joy. Now, if I was in scientific illustration mode, I would have to keep going to a point where everything is above and beyond. Now, when you're doing scientific illustration, it's almost like going 3D, because sometimes you have to do the muscle structure of dinosaurs, or do kind of sculptures of different things, and it goes into a lot of different areas. But I don't need to do that anymore. I just paint for pleasure, and I probably have said that way too much, so I'm pulling out the color out there. Now this kind of a little too bold. It's going to blend. I like there's a little shadow down here. Oop, kind of got rid of it. It's a good thing that I've been able to get to the point with watercolors where I can go in and out, and I don't have to worry about and I think this video would get too long if I start adding the stuff in the bottom and doing the Garibaldi. So I might just call this part 2 and call it a day. So thank you. Take care. I'll just zoom in a little bit more. Hello, I'm Steve Melendres, a model maker, illustrator, scientific illustrator, sculptor, design Natural History Museum in Los Angeles. Done a lot of different things, but I'm going to be doing watercolor demonstrations of the techniques I've developed over the years, and it's going to go from a lot of different directions. And also I'm going to be doing videos, I call them video posters for my daughter, so a lot of stuff that I can leave to my daughter about her crazy dad. So I'm taking a lot of different directions, but mainly 3. So anyway, that's my introduction.